Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Jeff Lawson, Dean of Graduate School and Research here at Western Carolina University. I would like to welcome you to our graduate student 3-minute thesis competition, better known as our 3MT. 3MT provides the opportunity for graduate students to promote their research, further develop communication and job interview skills, and, for the winners, to earn tuition and cash awards. Joining me today is the Associate Dean of Graduate School and Research, Dr. Joy Bowers-Campbell, who will provide an overview of the 3MT and prepare us for the evening's event. Dr. Bowers-Campbell, the floor is yours.
Welcome, everyone. Created at the University of Queensland, Australia, the 3MT competition provides graduate students the opportunity to develop their professional, presentation, and research communication skills. This is an opportunity for graduate students to showcase their graduate thesis, disquisition, dissertation, project, or business plan in a 3-minute presentation geared to a general audience using only one static slide. Students submitted their narrated slide to the graduate school. We had 5 judges who scored each presentation on communication, comprehension, and engagement. Let me highlight our judges and extend a warm thank you for your willingness to serve WCU graduate students. Our judges: Dr. Darden, Assistant Professor, College of Business; Dr. Marie-Lynn Germain, Professor, Human Resources and Leadership; Dr. Sam Casablanco, Assistant Professor, Psychology; Dr. Curtis Beinborn, Assistant Professor, Chemistry and Physics; Dr. Melissa McAdon-Mann, Assistant Professor, Counseling. These judges determined the first place and second place winners earlier this week. The top 10 submissions were compiled into a master video and presented on our graduate school website for the community to view and vote. People's Choice voting started on Monday and closed today, Thursday at noon. After viewing the presentations from our top competitors, which will be presented in alphabetical order by last name, I will announce our winners.
Before we get started, I want to acknowledge several people who have worked tirelessly to ensure the success of the 3MT competition. Dr. Joy Bowers-Campbell, Associate Dean of the Graduate School, and graduate school staff members Holly Vaughn and Kate Roach. I also want to thank the Graduate Student Association, who generously provided the funds for the cash awards this year. Is everybody ready? Here we go. Our first competitor is Bilal Abu Argoub, Engineering and Technology, Eliminating Interference, Redesigning Test Fixtures for Accurate Mountain Bike Analysis.
What's worse than getting bad test results? Getting results you think are good, but you're actually measuring the wrong thing entirely. That was our problem. Mountain bikes are incredible machines. To make them safer and more comfortable, engineers test them on shaker tables, machines that simulate riding over rough terrain. But the fixture holding the bike needs to stay completely silent during testing. If it vibrates along with the bike, you are measuring the fixture, not the bike itself. Our Brave Lab, the Bicycle Research, and Advanced Vibrations Engineering Lab had exactly that problem. Our texting fixture had one job: hold the bike still, stay quiet. It was doing neither. Imagine trying to listen to someone whispering while standing next to a running lawnmower. You would hear the lawnmower, not the whisper. That's what happened. Our data was contaminated. So the question became, how do we make the fixture stay silent? Here is how I tackled it. I created a detailed model of the existing fixture, mapping out every wielded joint and structural member. Then I used a method called finite element analysis to simulate its vibrations. Finite element analysis, it's like a crystal ball, but for engineers, except instead of predicting the future, it can predict how vibration occurs and affect a certain structure. The simulation revealed the problems. The fixture had natural frequencies right where mountain bikes vibrate during riding. The fixture and the bike were tuned to the same radio station. I couldn't start from scratch. We needed to reuse the existing structure. So I modeled different reinforcement designs and ran finite element analysis simulation on each iteration. The first design didn't work, neither did the second one or the third. But that's engineering. Fail fast, learn faster. Each iteration pushed those frequencies higher and higher, out of the range we care about. Think of it this way. The old fixture was like a diving board, flexible and bouncy. My new design is like a concrete platform, so stiff it barely moves. The result? Now, finally, when we test a mountain bike, we are measuring the bike, not the fixture. So, why does this even matter? This is not just about our lab equipment, it's about every rider on every trail. Accurate testing means manufacturer can build better suspension system. Engineers can design frames that handle rough terrain safely. When we fix the testing, we improve the riding. The bike industry can innovate faster with data they can trust. Better fixtures in the lab mean better bikes on the mountain. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from fixing the tools we forget they were broken, and maybe that's when real innovation begins.
Andy Coe, Educational Leadership, Equitable Advising, helping first-generation students find their way.
Hello, my name is Andy Coe. I am a doctoral student in Western Carolina's Educational Leadership Program, and this is my 3-minute thesis. Imagine showing up to a game that everyone else seems to know how to play, except no one gave you the rule book. That's how college can feel for many first-generation students, the first in their families to attend college. They have the talent and the drive to succeed, but they don't always have the insider knowledge of how college works, when to talk to a professor, how to choose classes, or even what questions to ask. At my university, we pride ourselves on having strong advising. Yet, advising often assumes that all students are starting with the same college knowledge. They don't. Students whose parents went to college often arrive fluent in what sociologists call cultural capital, college know-how, the unwritten skills and habits that help them play the role of a successful student. First-generation students are just as capable, but they start without that map. One-size-fits-all advising isn't just unhelpful, it's inequitable. Advisors are uniquely positioned to close this gap. They meet one-on-one, listen, guide, and translate the unwritten rules of college into clear, actionable steps. But here's the challenge. Generational status isn't visible. Even the most well-intentioned advisor can't adjust their approach if they don't know a student is first-gen, or what that means for their experience. My project combines 2 sources of insight. First, I held focus groups with upper-class first-generation students who described advising moments that had helped them feel capable and seen, and some that didn't. Second, I researched effective advising practices. Effective advising is relational, affirming, and grounded in a growth mindset. I'm sharing these insights through professional development sessions that help advisors continue the good work they're already doing with greater awareness and intention. In today's political climate, this work matters more than ever because first-generation students are often students of color. Improving advising strengthens equity and diversity, quietly through practice rather than politics. When advising becomes equitable, we're not giving every student the same map. We're helping each student draw their own. My goal is for first-generation students to stop asking, "Do I belong here?" and start saying, "I know where I'm going." Thank you.
Tyler Duncan, Project Management, the Family Legacy Network.
Growing up, I always looked forward to our large family gatherings. The games, the laughter, the prizes, the chance to meet new friends who in truth were my family. Over time, as we've grown older and relocated, those moments of connection have become rare. My goal is to bring our family back together, to rediscover who we are, where we come from, and how we can support one another moving forward. With my professional experience in the IT sector, mainly in higher education, it has shown me how combining technology and project management can lead to structured planning, communication, and collaboration. Project management taught me how efficient planning and defined processes can turn ideas into measurable outcomes. I realize these same principles can be applied to family life to help us organize, reconnect, and build a shared legacy. Every family faces ongoing projects, planning reunions, budgeting, or preparing for life's milestones like college, home ownership, or retirement. Without a structured framework, these responsibilities can create stress or even conflict. Applying project management principles such as goal setting, delegation, scheduling, risk management can strengthen family dynamics through communication, mentorship, and shared accountability. The Family Legacy Network Project provides a phased approach to reconnecting families through technology and collaboration. We start with virtual events where members share their professions and experiences and later expand into in-person gatherings that celebrate heritage and mentorship. This follows an established project management lifecycle: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, and closure. According to the Project Management Institute, 69% of projects meet their goals and 57% stay within budget when structured project management is applied. My vision is to scale these events through grants and sponsorships, creating a lasting platform for mentorships, collaboration, and cultural legacy. We can transform how many families connect through project management, turning memories into measurable impact and shared purpose. Thank you.
Kayla Echevarria. Biology: Functional Significance of Vocal Plasticity in Urban Song Sparrows.
Have you ever tried talking to someone in a room full of crowded people, but you just can't hear them over all the background noise? Birds living in cities have to deal with that same problem. The species that I study, song sparrows, use songs to communicate with potential mates, offspring, and alerting to possible threats. But in bustling urban areas, they may experience something called anthropogenic noise, which is loud, low-frequency noise that is produced by humans through things such as cars, airplanes, and construction. This noise can overlap with the frequencies that birds use in their songs, basically masking their communication. And to deal with this, urban song sparrows have been observed raising the minimum frequencies of their songs in immediate response to low-frequency background noise. And this ability is called vocal plasticity. Many studies demonstrate that birds in urban areas use songs with higher minimum frequencies, but fewer studies examine how those frequency adjustments influence the function of song. This research gap is crucial for understanding how modifications to acoustic signals affect the function of those songs. And to address whether higher minimum frequency songs impact the effectiveness of vocalizations to threaten rival males, I conducted song sparrow playback experiments simulating the intrusion on the territory of 32 male song sparrows. For each trial, I played 3 different song types through a speaker in the middle of every male's territory. The 3 song types included a control that was not manipulated, a low-frequency song where the high-frequency notes were taken out, and then a high-frequency song where the low-frequency notes were taken out. Trials were run on separate days with song type order randomized to increase reliability of the results. During every trial, I recorded 5 behavioral responses that correlate to aggression, but today I will only discuss one, which is distance from the speaker. A bird that gets really close to the speaker is seen as more aggressive, and a bird that stays further back is seen as less aggressive. I also measured ambient noise before and after every trial to investigate if variation in ambient noise had an influence on playback responses of focal males. This graph on the bottom right shows that males reacted roughly the same to all 3 song types. This potentially means that increasing the minimum frequencies of their songs doesn't reduce the effectiveness of vocalizations to threaten rival males. It means that vocal plasticity helps birds keep their communication just as strong, even when they have to adjust it to overcome noise that we create. I also found no relationship between the amount of ambient noise and behavioral responses, suggesting that maybe frequency-shifted songs aren't meant for rival males, but rather females. These findings fill a research gap that is crucial for understanding how modifications to acoustic signals affect the function of songs. And even in our noisy world, song sparrows and many other species are adapting, finding new ways to make sure that their voices are still being heard.
Christina Gray, Chemistry. Flooded with microplastics.
Did you know that the average person produces about 482 pounds of plastic waste every year? When you multiply that number by everyone you know, from your coworkers, friends, and family, that number quickly adds up. Now, imagine what happens to all of this waste when natural disaster strikes. It looks something like this picture here. This is Lake Junaluska right after Tropical Storm Helene hit North Carolina in September of 2024. Tropical Storm Helene brought in a historic amount of rainfall that led to a 1 in 1,000 year flooding event, and it was the costliest storm in North Carolina's history. Helene displaced over 5 million cubic yards of waste that was littered across the landscape. This event didn't just move storm debris, but plastic and microplastic debris got swept away as well. Microplastics are plastic fragments, films, and fibers that are smaller than 5 millimeters in size. Due to their small size, they can readily move throughout our ecosystem, especially in our waterways. There are two main objectives to my research. The first is determining what types of microplastics we are finding along different creeks and streams in Haywood County, western North Carolina, after Tropical Storm Helene. And the second part is determining where these microplastics end up and why. To do this, we filter collected sediment samples onto Petri dishes. I then use tweezers to pick off microplastics and analyze each one under infrared spectroscopy. Infrared spectroscopy works by generating a chemical fingerprint that can help me identify what types of plastic I am working with. So far, the most common microplastic types we have found are polyester, polypropylene, and polyethylene. A few examples of products that use polyester are clothing and bed linens, while polypropylene can be found in carpets, tea bags, and automotive parts. Polyethylene can be found in gum, plastic bottles, food packaging, and so much more. Once we figure out what types of microplastics we are finding, we can investigate how they are transported during flooding events. While determining the transport of microplastics in riverine systems is not well researched, we hypothesize that we will find heavier plastics with coarse-grained sediments like gravel, and lighter plastics will be found with fine-grained sediments such as sand and silt. By mapping where these microplastics settle, we can start predicting where microplastic hotspots may be after natural disasters and better understand how this modern contaminant is interacting within our environment. Because if we can track microplastics after a flood, maybe one day we can prevent them from flooding our future. And remember, as always, stay curious.
Watson Harlan, History. Democracy, Clergy, and Warriors. Frontier Wars, Acculturation, and Gendered Developments of Social Classes Within the Cherokee Nation.
The Cherokee Nation in the 18th century is a dynamic place. It's a place that is at the junction of French and English interests on the continent. It sits at the edge of the Carolinas, which are major thoroughfares between the Caribbean holdings of the British Empire and Britain itself. At the same time, the fur trade is one of the major ongoing things that is restructuring the social structure of the Cherokee Nation. At the beginning of the century, the Cherokee Nation is a highly democratized and egalitarian place, with no town truly having a benefit or a supersedence over another group of towns. However, that begins to change in 1730, as the first major international treaty between Cherokee and Britain is signed, which inexorably links the Overhill towns in eastern Tennessee to the Crown. The signatories of the treaty are largely military officials, and all of them are men, and this actually begins a major process of social transformation within the Cherokee Nation, wherein women start to see their traditional authorities and positions in councils eroded, while at the same time the clergy and the peacetime infrastructure of these towns also see challenges, as the promulgation of firearms and the increase in frontier wars causes extended conflicts that allow the emergency powers reserved for wartime to be extended to this clique of military officials who have also been recognized as the diplomatic body of the nation. Between 1730 and the Cherokee-Anglo War, which erupts in 1759, there is a growing distrust of British diplomacy, and a political divide forms between the pro-British and pro-French or French factions of the Cherokee Nation. As a result of this, In the wake of the war, this faction and this factionalism, they don't vanish. They are kept as almost two separate groups, and when the American Revolution erupts, the pro-British faction becomes the pro-American faction, and ironically, the pro-French faction aligns themselves with British interests and uses that as a means of resisting American expansion into the nation. As a result of these conflicts, this warrior class then becomes a landed gentry in the wake of the American Revolution, as many of these signatories are the beneficiaries of the financial and economic gains that are within these late treaties in the latter part of the 18th century, which eventually culminates in the creation of a Cherokee planter class, at the same time finally disenfranchising women entirely from society at the political level with the creation of the Cherokee national government. My research aims to connect all of these themes together into one singular essay.
Lynn Hudson, Fine Arts, large format, handmade, pigmented paper.
When you think of summer, what do you dream about? Ocean waves crashing against the shore, the salty smell of the beach, or maybe watching a spectacular sunset behind a mountain range? Well, that's not quite what I imagine. My perfect summer involves hot, sweaty days, outside, birds chirping, bugs flying everywhere, and really stinky Abaca pulp in yogurt containers. Yeah, that's how I spent this summer, conducting material and academic research on pigmented pulp and building my own large-scale molds for making paper. My goals were to determine the best pulps to use for large-scale work, to compare color samples using natural earth pigments versus synthetic pigments, and creating a system of molds that I could do by myself. First, when I talk about pulp, what am I talking about? Well, paper's made from trees, right? No, for handmade paper, I'm using the fibers from abaca and flax plants, and the pulp is harvested from the stem of that plant. And fun fact, it's also used to make tea bags. Now let's talk about getting colors inside the paper instead of painting on top of it. Traditionally, paper makers use aqueous pigments, which are suspended in water, and they're highly chemical to bond with that pulp. But I wanted to experiment with ground earth pigments in their pure form. What colors would still be vibrant, and could I combine those colors to make colors? So, for example, yellow and blue makes green, right? Actually, yellow and black makes the most gorgeous green. But that's another talk. Finally, I had to build a giant mold that I could manage myself and that would constrain the drying pulp enough to dry into large flat sheets. I discovered working outdoors was ideal because to make paper, water has to be able to drain from the pulp as it dries. And that water increases exponentially with the size of the mold. So for example, if the paper is increasing from inches to feet, then we're going from, say, 2 gallons of water to 20 gallons of water. And working outside on a raised surface allows the water to go wherever it wants. And bonus, it watered my plants. I also spent the summer interviewing contemporary papermaking, reading every journal article on large-scale papermaking I could find, and learning about ancient styles of papermaking. I settled on a hybrid Nepalese and Western style, and that's the mold system you see in the photo. What's next? Well, some of you may be dreaming of pumpkin spice lattes and football games, but I'm dreaming of an even larger mold. So you'll find me behind Bardo Arts Center, mixing pigments and pulp, enjoying the crisp blue skies, the swirling color of falling leaves, and I hope you'll come by to say hello. Thank you.
Cameron Robinson, Educational Leadership, Bridging the Gap, Identifying and Supporting Students with Unidentified Pre-Existing Mental Health Needs.
Imagine standing on a bridge. One side is stability, the other is crisis. For many high-achieving teens living away from home for the first time, that bridge is narrow and shaky. Now imagine if the adults around them couldn't see the cracks until someone fell. My colleagues, Kayla Loudermilk, Jenny Merrill, and myself have identified this issue at the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics Morganton, the setting of both our professional work and our research. Across the nation, youth mental health has reached crisis levels. Nearly 40% of high schoolers feel persistently sad or hopeless. About 1 in 5 have seriously considered suicide. Our residential high schools, where students leave home earlier to learn and grow under intense academic pressure, these numbers climb even higher. But here's the deeper problem. Many students arrive with unidentified pre-existing mental health challenges. Without early recognition, distress often escalates into crisis, leading to hospitalization or removal from campus. Every removal is more than a statistic. It represents a young person losing not only their place in a school community, but also their sense of belonging, stability, resiliency, and the opportunity to reach their full potential. Our disposition focuses on a simple but powerful question. What if we could catch these crises earlier? We're building an early identification and support system at NCSSM Morganton by training our community coordinators, the people who live on hall with the students, to recognize early signs of struggle and respond with empathy instead of discipline. Our improvement initiative uses improvement science, testing small evidence-based changes like training modules, reflection exercises, and referral protocols, and then measuring what actually works. The aim is clear: empower staff, identify earlier, support faster, prevent removals. Our plan is to have community coordinators complete the training and be able to report a greater confidence in recognizing mental health red flags and connecting students to help. Each early intervention means one more student who stays on campus, stays engaged, and stays well. This isn't just a mental health issue, it's an equity issue. Students of color, LGBTQ+ youth, and those from low-income families are disproportionately affected when schools lack trauma-informed, culturally responsive support. Our vision is simple: a campus where no student has to reach a breaking point before being supported. By catching crises early, we can turn that shaky bridge into a steady pathway, one built on care, awareness, and belonging. Thank you.
Madeline Rojas, Social Work. From Environmental Disaster to Environmental Justice, a post-Helene study.
Human life cannot be sustained in solitude. We rely on a network of life for our continued existence. Our food consists of plants and animals that rely on bugs and microorganisms that enrich our soil. Many microorganisms live inside of us and play a significant role in our health and even in our behavior. It is reductive to consider ourselves separate subjects witnessing nature. We are nature. As environmental crises are experienced more frequently and at a greater intensity by the global community, there is a growing need to develop an understanding of the impacts of environmental degradation and how to respond and heal. As social workers, I and my colleagues have many social and political issues to attend to on micro, meso, and macro levels. Therefore, the relevance of the natural world can sometimes be under-acknowledged in our work. I argue that environmental justice is social justice and must be prioritized. Hurricane Helene made landfall in the Gulf Coast as a Category 4 storm in September 2024 and swept through the southeastern United States, taking over 240 lives and causing an estimated $78.7 billion in damage. Impacted communities have experienced a disruption to their ecosystems. Some of the impacts can be quantified, such as loss of life, property, and shelter. But what about the impacts on survivors' relationship to nature? This problem is multidimensional and has implications in the realms of psychology, environmentalism, urban planning, and social and environmental justice. Our research is an exploratory, qualitative study on the perspectives of groups that experienced Hurricane Helene. Our focus is on organizations local to Western North Carolina that engage in environmental justice work. As social workers, we used a multifaceted framework to identify organizations for our study. We looked for groups whose work lived in the intersection between environmental and social justice. For instance, a group that offers free lunches to community members in doing so rescues food that would otherwise be discarded by grocery stores. Even small local grassroots and faith-based organizations that repurpose grocery store donations are valuable agents of change in supporting environmental justice through community work. Using a thematic saliency analysis, my research partner and I have begun to identify meaningful connections between organizations responding to Hurricane Helene. For many, the experience provoked a sense of awe at the incredible power of nature capable of both nurturing and destroying human life. One participant in our study shared, quote, "I still try to speak of the happy things of nature, like, yes, I'm more anxious around it. Yes, I'm more aware, but I still love it, and I still love the things that it does and the things that it supports, and I'm never able to stop talking about that. Because at the end of the day, if we don't do that, we continue to say, I'm scared, cut it all down." Our hope is that our study may highlight the intersection of environmental and social justice and raise awareness of the work that local organizations are doing to support our interconnected human and non-human world. Thank you.
Catherine Ross, School Psychology, Non-Autistic College Students' Openness to Friendship with an Autistic Peer, the Roles of Attitudes and Knowledge.
Hi, my name is Catherine, and I'm a graduate student in the school psychology program at WCU. So to begin, I will be using person-first language like autistic person, as across multiple self-advocacy groups and surveys. Predominantly, this is the preferred language, as it highlights how autism is an integral part of someone's identity and not something to be cured. The current issue I am looking into is that there are more autistic people in college than ever before. However, there is a significant disparity in graduation rates between non-autistic and autistic college students. There will always be people in both populations who find that college is just not for them. But the current discrepancy between populations points to barriers unique to autistic college students. And to preface, there are absolutely institutional challenges for students with disabilities, like accessing resources that I do not want to overlook in their impact on success. However, for this study, I will be focusing on what, as a student in psychology, my expertise lies in: relationships and mental health. Autistic college students report not feeling social support in college, leading to mental health challenges and a lack of belongingness on campus. There is research on autistic people's perspectives on friendship. Like, do autistic people want friends? And is friendship a protective factor for mental health for autistic people? And the answer is yes. However, pressure is often placed on autistic people to mask their autistic traits, to find friends, which is not only mentally and physically exhausting, but can also lead to friendships that are not authentic or accepting. And this does not resolve the feeling of not belonging, as to be accepted, they must repress key aspects of themselves. So I am now interested in the flexible and inflexible factors that non-autistic college students possess that impact their openness to friendship with an autistic peer, which I define openness using social distance and behavioral intention. Desire for social distance, or the degree to which a person or group wants to remain separate from members of different social groups, is an important, well-studied outcome variable relating to acceptance and stigma. Behavioral intention measures someone's intention to engage in a behavior. For this study, we'll be looking at non-autistic college students' intention to engage in social support with an autistic peer across different contexts, such as academics, social, and recreational activities. So some factors that I believe will moderate a non-autistic person's openness to friendship are knowledge, autism knowledge, attitudes about autism, quantity of contact and quality of contact with autistic people in the past, and the non-autistic person's gender. Some of these factors are flexible and some are not. Like, knowledge can always be added onto, but someone's past level of contact with autistic people is not something that can be changed. So understanding the significance of these flexible and inflexible factors help in working on interventions to increase social support towards autistic college students. This information will be another data point in the growing body of research to decrease barriers and increase college success and satisfaction for autistic students.
I am delighted to announce the winners of our 3-minute thesis competition. In second place, Catherine Ross, School Psychology. In first place, and representing Western Carolina University in our regional competition in the Council of Southern Graduate Schools, drum roll, is Christina Gray, Chemistry. Congratulations! If you are attending our in-person premiere watch party in Cullowhee, we will announce the People's Choice winner before you leave. Otherwise, please connect with us on social media at WCU Grad School or visit our 3MT webpage for the final announcement. Again, from the Dean, myself, and the entire graduate school, thank you to everyone who made this event possible. It is always a good time to showcase the fascinating work of our graduate students and their graduate faculty. Good night.